The Emirates Stadium, Block J, Row 9, Seat 539, that's where I belong. Under the floodlights sharing a beer with the ones I hold dear, bound by the love of the beautiful game, one that inflicts both feelings of victory and pain. Though 68% of male fans suggest otherwise. Rather, they believe that women should not participate in sport at all, or if so, they would be better suited to more feminine pursuits such as athletics rather than football. There's no doubt that women's football is on the rise historically from underinvestment to societal attitudes. Adversity has existed within women's football for centuries. As a designer equipped with the means and the potential to have a meaningful and long-lasting impact on the world, the utilization of my skill set for the greater good is something that significantly appeals to me. Throughout my time at university, I have consistently strived to create a balance between work that both explores and sets out to promote notions of inclusivity, a sense of belonging, and as a conversation starter amongst all within my personal practice thus far. As a natural empath, I often find myself wanting to accommodate to the needs of everyone, where possible. This more often than not has led to me explore design through a more ethical lens, centering the needs of those deemed as marginalized, underrepresented and unheard above my own interests. Shedding light onto their experiences throughout my work in the hopes of creating awareness and opening up conversations surrounding meaningful topics and celebrating those who may be typically excluded within society. It is not a new thing, using design as a catalyst for addressing social injustice, inequality, and as a means to open up difficult conversations. I'm contextually influenced by the likes of both Candy Chong and the Gorilla Girls, both of whom I believe to be exemplary candidates of utilizing their platforms for the greater good. Based in New Orleans Before I Die is an installation by Candy Chong that aims to encourage passerbys to reflect on death and life and share their personal aspirations within a public space. For many human beings, the idea of death is one that can be rather overwhelming and a topic that is hard to come to terms with. It is through the installation that Chong is able to provide great comfort to us individuals through positively reinforcing our perception and relationship with death, reminding us that it is a collective thought that often weighs heavily on the minds of many of us within our everyday lives. Gorilla Girls is another collective who use their as a craft means and a force for good. Arguably, their most famous piece, Do Women Have to Be Naked to Get Into the Met Museum, illustrates that of a nude female whose head is replaced by a gorilla. Situated above the reclined female is a bold body of text of which states, "It is through their disruptive juxtaposition of imagery and provocative style of communication that they are both able to address, advocate and raise questions regarding systematic faults such as the gender and racial inequalities alongside the objectification of women heavily prevalent within the arts." So whether that is getting people to grapple with the idea mortality or exposing the inequality within the arts, both practitioners are able to foster this idea of producing meaningful design that not only helps to bring pressing issues to the fore but encourages public engagement, raises questions, opens up conversations and ultimately inspires them to take action, and that is exactly what I want to do. I want to make work that is meaningful, that raises questions. Yes, I can appreciate a nicely typeset book, but the sole potential to have a long-lasting impact through the utilization of graphic design as a tool for advocacy, social change and as a means of addressing inequalities and opening up difficult conversations is something that I aim to achieve within my own personal practice. Therefore, harboring my love for both football and design for the greater good, this semester I set out to investigate design's role in the growth of women's football and its part in promoting greater equality, representation and awareness surrounding the game and its extensive history, ultimately leading to me producing a range of outcomes of both an informative and celebratory nature. There is no doubt that historically women's football has faced numerous obstacles. From an abundance of gender-biased stereotypes to almost little to no media coverage, the history of women's football and its preservation has been one highly disregarded. My first project is one of an informative nature. I wanted to use my study as a means to raise awareness regarding the rich heritage of women's football. It is something that is often disregarded but holds great significance in the stance of women's football today. When kickstarting my project, I began by looking in depth into the historic roots of women's football within England, from which I began uncovering many of the deep-rooted misogynistic attitudes and stereotypes surrounding women's abilities, physiques and position within the game. It was during the late 19th century that the women's game began to emerge and gain popularity, historically a time where women were beginning to advocate and fight for equal right and opportunities. After numerous failed attempts by several individuals to form women's teams, it became clear that the formation of the women's game would deem to be quite the challenge. It was in March of 1895 that a more successful attempt was made by Nettie J. Hannibal's British Ladies FC. Although the team's first game itself attracted an impressive crowd of over 10,000, it was made clear by both newspaper and journalists that football was not suitable for women. This being reflective in a statement put out by the Wellington Journal, of which reported, "Despite the coverage and the countless criticism, the British ladies alongside many other teams at the time faced, many of the ladies continued to play despite all adversity, often on the official grounds of men's football teams." By the 20th century, the Football Association were to show the full scale of their hostility towards women's participation in the game through the application of a ban on women's football in 1921 that would eventually be lifted in 1971. In honor of these numerous barriers, setbacks and injustices faced by some of the pioneers of women's football, I knew I wanted to collate this found material into an outcome of some form or another. I felt such a strong sense of injustice for the women who had fought so hard to participate in a game that a governing body such as the FA could effectively come along and write them out of history, damaging the reputation and stinting of women's football for so long, so much so I became interested in providing an educational stance towards the historical injustices and milestones that have been achieved within women's football through the outcomes I produced. One particular project I was inspired by was Alison Phillips' A Kit for a Lady Footballer, an innovative spin on the 19th century kits worn by the British ladies in collaboration with Wolverhampton Wanderers Foundation. Phillips' project is the perfect blend between the contemporary and the traditional through the integration of the Wolverhampton Wanderers' striking black and gold home kit colours combined with the replica silhouette of the voluminous blouses once worn by British ladies. The kit is the exemplary of commemorating the heritage of the women's game in a much more engaging way. Adopting a similar approach to Phillips, the first of my outcomes takes the form of a digital timeline exploring the incredible history of women's football from its earliest beginnings to the present day. Due to the complex history of women's football, making its extensive past more digestible and accessible to a broader audience was key, hence my chosen medium. I felt the work of Phillips to be particularly inspiring in helping me to glue together the mass amount of research I'd collected in the form of a contemporary output. The timeline itself is presented in the form of a football pitch in which the viewer is able to navigate their way down the pitch through the ages of the women's game. Through utilizing this approach, I was not only able to extend my skill set through dabbling into creative coding to achieve an interactive timeline, but I was able to put what may be considered by some as mundane textbook history into a much more appealing educational format. My second outcome sets out to highlight arguably the most successful women's football team to have ever existed. From their impressive winning streak to the remarkable amount of money they raised for charity, the Dick Kerr ladies were in a league of their own. From the get-go of the project, I knew I wanted to house the team's remarkable achievements in the form of an outcome. When gathering inspiration, I became drawn to the works of program designer John Elvin. Referred to by some as the pioneer of the golden age of football program design, from inflated typefaces to innovative layouts, Elvin's unique body of work breaks the boundaries of traditional editorial layouts. Inspired by Elvin's match programs themselves, I gravitated towards the format of a publication to showcase the significance of Dick Kerr's remarkable achievements. The publication as a whole is a reflection of its contents. It's bold in both its typeface choice and size, straying away from the conventional program formats, rather embodying the significance of the team's historic stance in the women's game, strong determination and the never say die spirit of the Dick Kerr ladies themselves. Color-wise, the publication implements a monochrome color palette drawn from the kits of the Preston-based team, simultaneously reflecting the nature of the team being a beacon of light amidst a dark time for women in football. It is with both these outcomes that I intend to amplify the experiences of the women of the past who yearned for equality and fought so valiantly to play for their love of the game, which I believe I have successfully achieved. My next project gravitates towards that of a celebratory form. The project itself stems from my love of collecting Panini football stickers as a child. Although I heavily enjoyed collecting men's football stickers, I couldn't help but feel angered at the company for catering towards a certain demographic with their various football sticker packs. It was only this year that the company released their first Women's League sticker pack, and so with a disappointed younger me in mind, this was the very idea that fueled my project Panini Pioneers, a set of collectible women's football stickers that set out to celebrate the many remarkable achievements of some of the pioneering women in football within the UK. Design-wise, the stickers seek inspiration from the works of Journey E. Sutton, the artist behind FIFA's 2023, of which brand identity aimed to celebrate the indigenous culture of the tournament's host countries Australia and New Zealand. The overall look of the brand sets out to celebrate the women of the 32 teams involved, taking inspiration from the country's vibrant local landscapes as reflected in the identity's color palette. alongside implementing unique patterns created in collaboration with local indigenous artists. To maintain consistency across my own sticker designs, I opted for a color scheme of red, white and blue, one prevalent within the Union Jack, uniting my English pioneer cards with the Scottish. With this outcome, I hoped to promote the idea of inclusive design as being a gateway for positive change and as a means of representation being a factor that instills pride, encouraging more young girls to get involved with the game. It is through design that we are able to address a range of historical, social and political issues concerning a variety of topics, women's football included. Specifically, it can be used as a means addressed and conversations surrounding the game can be brought to the fore whilst inspiring the next generation of girls to pursue their footballing dreams. As my practice continues to flourish, I hope to go on to utilize my skill set as a means to create meaningful design addressing a range of issues and creating work that fosters both a sense of